In this video, we're going to break down the design of this really fantastic garden shade and enclosure that was shared by Brian. It's a fantastic time to go ahead and plan out your upcoming spring garden projects, and this is a really great one. We're going to highlight the different design elements and things that Brian incorporated into it to make this, and could be something that you use in your garden, or you could just take some of the techniques and incorporate those into your builds. So this is really cool. This is made entirely out of 3/4 inch electrical conduit. You can find at Do It Best hardware stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, all kinds of different places. It's in the electrical aisle. And then the steel fittings that we're going to look at throughout are all pieces of hardware that we manufacture in upstate South Carolina, so you can build all kinds of awesome projects. And you can work with the empty conduit and our connectors. You don't have to do any welding. You don't have to use any power tools. You can cut empty conduit with a handheld rotating pipe and tube cutter, and then you can assemble your connectors with a 5mm hex wrench. So it's really easy to customize dimensions and frames. And we're not really going to talk about dimensions too much because you can customize this frame. I will talk about some basic things you should keep in mind whenever you're considering different measurements and things like that. But overall, you can customize this completely and change the dimensions for your space and your garden. But pretty much we're just going to go through and break down the different connectors that were used and just highlight some different techniques here. So essentially, if we go ahead and look at this, we can see here that there are a series of vertical posts that go all the way around, and we'll just highlight those here. And we've got one in each corner, just like there. We've got one here on the opposite side, one here, there, and then it's kind of hard to tell. Oh, there's a couple around that gate down there. So 2 there, and then 1 on the end. And then I'm not going to highlight all the ones on the opposite side because this is pretty much going to be a mirrored design from one side to the other. And so you can just use the same techniques on both sides. And I don't want to add a bunch of lines and make it really confusing. But pretty much the connectors that you'll use on this side, you can also use on the other side. So I'm not going to highlight those in the back, but it's pretty much the same design. So essentially we've got all the verticals here, and then we can look at the main part of the frame, and we'll highlight the connectors that allowed Brian to make that. First of all, we've got the 90-degree connectors, and those are going to be used up here almost at the very top of the vertical post in the corners. So we're going to have, let's see, that's going to be 1, 2, actually not at the very bottom. I forgot, that's a little bit different back there. Actually, no, that is a 90. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's going to be one more down here, 5 90-degree connectors used in those different spots in the corners. And those are a connector that allow you to connect 3 pieces of conduit together and make a 90-degree kind of corner connection for cubes and rectangular projects like this. And that's really, the main part of that design. And so we've got a few of those 90s here. At the very bottom, because of this gate, he didn't want the empty conduit to trip people walking in and out. He didn't use a 90, he just used a maker pipe T connector, and that is what's grabbing on to that one there, and here, and also here, and there, and probably quite a few other places if we look. Yeah, so there's going to be some there. There's going to be one on the other end, down there. There's going to be, let's see, I think that might be it for now for the T's. For the main part of the frame, I think that's it, except he does have another gate on the side here, which is cool. He's got 2 gates and 2 points of access, which is great. So he's got 4 more T connectors there to create that. So that's awesome. And then we can see some other connectors that he's using here. We've got the 180-degree connector, which is used in this kind of situation whenever you have a long build and you want to, extend that length. And like I said, we're not going to talk about too much dimensions, but a general rule of thumb that we say is to have some sort of vertical brace or an angled brace every 4 or 5 feet. And that looks to be what he's done here in this project. But there's another 180-degree connector there, I believe. It's either a T connector or a 180 there. I think it's another 180 degree, which essentially just allows you to have this piece of conduit running through the middle, which is the blue vertical we already marked. And we've got this other piece of conduit that terminates in the T connector, extends, and then terminates inside the 180. And then the 180 breaks up that horizontal span and then allows you to add another piece going to the other side. So like I said, this is exactly what you want to use if you're making a longer build and you need to extend the length and just kind of break up a long horizontal span. You can do that really easily with the 180-degree connector. So that we've got going across. Down here we've got a piece that terminates in these 2 connectors and connects together. Same thing there. going across. Okay, and then down here we've got one between the 180 and this T connector, just connected between those. Here we've got the same thing, terminating inside of there and going from one side to the other here with those two T connector, with the T connector and the 90-degree connector that we've already highlighted. So that's pretty much that part of the frame for the lower section. And then up top, it's a little bit different because, obviously you have the roof space, so you're not really worried about tripping over anything. So he did something a little bit different, kind of standard here on the side, actually. We just got the long horizontal piece going between these two 90-degree connectors. There's another T connector grabbing on to add that vertical going down to support the gate. But where it is a little bit different is here on the side. You got the piece of conduit going from this 90 all the way across, and instead of using a 180-degree connector, he's using a very similar connector, which is the 4-way connector. And it's very similar, like I said, because it has these three pieces just like the 180-degree connector does, the one in the middle and then the two coming out. But it also has one, as we can see, coming out of the front and going all the way to the opposite side of the build. So that works really well if you're not worried about tripping over pipes, like if it's up high, like in this scenario, and you need to add that long horizontal piece to support kind of the upper part of your frame. That's a great connector to do that. And so he's using the 4-way connector throughout in a few different places to be able to do that. There's one up here as well, and I think that is just that's just a T connector. And so that's pretty much the main part of the frame. You've got these pieces of conduit running from here to there, and then terminating in that there, and going down to the end. So that's pretty much the main part of the external frame. Like I said, it's the same techniques on the opposite side on that other wall over there, just a mixture of 4-way connectors at the top to connect to those horizontal pieces, and then the same thing at the very bottom, except he doesn't have the kind of the middle rung because he's got that brick wall back there, so he didn't have to do the same technique to create a fence. Just kind of has an open wall there with some different bracing and whatnot. And speaking of which, that's kind of the next part that we'll break down. We've got all kinds of bracing in this, and it's pretty easy to add bracing to your frames. He just used the Maker Pipe 45-degree connector, which just joins two pieces of conduit together and then adds these angled supports. And he did that in quite a few different places. We've got some over here on the side there with two more 45s. Same thing, pretty much mirrored just all throughout this frame, except here's something a little bit different. He actually used the adjustable 180-degree connector, which joins three pieces of conduit and allows you to make this V-shape brace, which is really cool. So, because you used to have to stack connectors, but with this connector, it's just kind of all incorporated into one and allows you to create these braces just like that. He's got those going all the way up the wall. He's got a couple more of those on this wall here. And then we can see he even adding some support to the roof here. So that piece that's coming out of the 4-way that we mentioned earlier, he's got a piece going from this vertical on the outside and then extends up to the 45-degree connector in the middle there and just adds some bracing. So he's got a ton of different bracing throughout, just utilizing these different techniques. And as we can see there, it's supported really well, and he's got a bunch of connectors and it's doing a really good job. And there's just a couple of really unique things about this build that we'll highlight to kind of finish this off. First of all is these gates that he made. These are really small. He's not really trying to keep out any animals like deer or anything because he has this brick fence all the way around his property. He is trying to keep out his dog though. So he's got this short fence all the way around. And so he just made this short gate here using 4 T connectors, which just allows you to create this nice and simple, just 2-dimensional rectangular gate, as we can see here. And then he added some 45-degree bracing in there, as we can see. Got a bunch of 45s on this gate here to add that, and then these angled pieces going between those. And so that's a nice and sturdy gate, and it's pretty much the exact same design down there. And then to secure that gate to the frame, he's using the 3D printed hinges from Northwoods Engineered. Those are the pieces we can see here. You just drill some holes in the EMT conduit and you can secure those. They work really well. He's also using the gate latch from Northwoods Engineered, which is this piece here, and works really well as a functional gate latch for these kind of projects. That's pretty much how he made the gates down here at the bottom. And then he secured some hardware cloth to the frame. We don't see exactly how. I don't really see a close-up of anything. From what it looks like, I would guess either regular zip ties, or if this is out west somewhere, probably metal zip ties would work better to hold that in place. We don't see exactly, but I would assume it's something like that. Those are nice and easy and inexpensive ways to secure those kind of materials. So we've got that there. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight is the method that he actually has for adding this sunshade here. And he actually has it so this sunshade can kind of slide back and out of the way if he doesn't want this to be fully deployed all the time. And this is a fantastic technique no matter what you're building, whether it's a shade for your garden or if it's a patio shade. And the way he did this is, you can see here, my line's pretty terrible, but you can see this vertical piece of conduit is extending up all the way through the 90-degree connector. It's actually going through the 90 there just a little bit. And that allowed him to add these T connectors at the very top of the frame. As we can see here, he's got one there, and he's got one pretty much on top of every vertical. He's got a short stub sticking up, so we can add that T connector there. And what that allowed him to do is add this little short piece of conduit, as you can see, inside the T connector. And this allowed him, he's actually running the steel cable, as we can see, all the way around through the T connector and pretty much all the way around the whole top of the frame, which is really creative and just really awesome because, as we can see here, he's got some carabiners attached to his sunshade and the grommets of the sunshade, and that allows him to slide the material back and forth across the frame, like I said, and kind of, accordion style close the shade or open it, which is really fantastic. And like I said, I think a great technique for all kinds of builds, not just this one. So I definitely wanted to highlight that. And that's pretty much it. You can customize this, like I said, for your garden and your specific space, and you can, use different connectors. Just kind of use the same technique that we highlighted on this wall, and you can customize this pretty much infinitely, exactly for what you need, as we've seen from different builds from the community. But hopefully you found this encouraging and inspiring for a build that you want to put together, and you can use some of these design techniques in your build. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.